That's not being heard?
No.
Everything's on tonight?
Yes.
All right, so after calling the meeting to order, we have citizens' time. Is there anyone in the audience for something not on the agenda? No. All right, so the record will show that. Approval of minutes, February 14th, 2019. Are we in a position to approve? All right, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 2 abstentions. 402 is the count. All right. All right, so now we're on item 4. Notice is hereby given, the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Michael and Nicole Santa Maria. The commission will be taking information related to the proposed demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and the construction of a new single-family dwelling within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland at 3 Cedarwood Lane in Burlington. The application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The application material is available for public review in the Conservation Office. Is there someone here for 3 Cedarwood? Come on up. All right, how are you folks tonight? Okay, so what we'd like to do is have you introduce yourselves, and in fact, you probably reside at 3 Cedarwood. And then after that, you get the floor first and you get to talk, introduce everyone who's here with you.
So I'm Michael Santa Maria. This is my wife, Nicole Santa Maria. We live at 3 Cedarwood Lane. And this is Brad Chapey. He's our construction builder.
Construction builder.
Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, good to see all 3 of you. All right, so if you want to say a summary or whatever you want about what you're doing, and then we'll sort of handle it from there for you.
Sure. So basically, we'd like to remove the existing house that we're living in now and construct a new house. Brad will do that for us. And we'd like to do it on the same property that we're in. That's short of it.
That was brief, okay. All right, John, or Eileen, would you tell us a little bit about the resource area and the likely distance?
Okay, so we knew that there was wetland sort of in the back, sort of, I guess, south of the property, just from a project that had come in front of us about a year ago. So when Brad came into the office, John remembered it. And it has been flagged. We didn't go and look at the flagging specifically, but the house is something like 90 feet from the wetland. So it's a long way away. I don't really have any concerns about that, especially given that they're proposing to put erosion controls around the whole property.
Okay, so we'll see if the commissioners have comments or questions. Gail?
Are you proposing any grading change to the site?
We will be cutting for a driveway with a small retaining wall under 8 feet.
In
Basis.
grades, no stays? And is the driveway, are you proposing any kind of trench to catch the runoff from the driveway?
We'll do gravel on the edges, pitch it on the property.
I'm good.
Indra, anything further?
How much is the area, the existing building?
Say again?
The existing building area, how much is that?
The house is probably, 2,800 square feet?
Right now?
Yeah.
2,200?
Oh, 2,200?
And how much the new one would be?
It's similar footprint, but
Way no differently.
you can see in the red lines there, and you can see the existing houses on it.
So how are you gonna take care of roof runoff?
Say again?
Roof runoff?
We're going to have gravel 2 feet as specified around the whole perimeter.
All over, okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
All right, Bill?
Will you be taking any trees down during this construction? No? Okay,
We don't anticipate any trees.
good. I'm glad to see you leaving the ones that are, the bigger ones on the left there. They were good-looking trees. Yeah, again, it's quite a distance from the wetland, so I have no real concerns about this.
All right. Ed, anything further?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add?
I have nothing further. Is there anyone in the audience for this one at 3 Cedarwood Lane? All right, then we have a draft negative conditional determination, which essentially specifies a few routine conditions, and then if approved, you'll be all set. So let's review it.
Yeah, she has something.
Okay, so the project is as described, an addition, no, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one, sorry about that. It's right here, right here. It's not an addition. It's going to be a demolition of existing family dwelling and construction of a new dwelling within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The closest point of the dwelling was approximately 90 feet from the BVW, and the closest grading being maybe perhaps 75 feet. This tells you that this is a negative determination, which means you can go forward with the project. And the main conditions are on the back. Oh, yeah, back. You're going to install sediment barriers as shown in the reference plan. This should also include wattles across the front of the lot to prevent runoff into the street. No work is permitted beyond the erosion control boundary. Most of these conditions are standard about keeping soil on site in a location that minimizes likelihood of runoff into the street. No tracking onto roadways, and if that happens, they should be cleaned off daily. No filling or grading on the property beyond what's required and approved in the plan. The new driveway shall be pitched so that the runoff shall be directed to a stone trench or trench system, not to the street, and that's as you proposed. Rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated on the lot and not discharged onto roadway or adjacent lots, and you said you're going to use a gravel drip edge. And this also just gives a couple of conditions about how the members of the commission can just come and take a look on site.
Okay.
Okay?
You have any questions about them? Okay, the commission have any comments? All right, it seems fairly straightforward. All right, if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project as described at 3 Cedarwood Lane under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14 and State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? 6-0-0. You're all set?
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, good.
Thank you all so much.
All righty, good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Sure.
Let's wait for the DEP now, everything on this one.
All right, and the next item is item 5. We have a continued public hearing. It was a notice of intent at 38 Sunset Drive, location by Robin and Lauren Iannachi. Did I get it right?
Pretty close.
Close? Okay, Iannachi, okay. And it's for the construction of a residential addition, and at the time of the agenda, it says DEP number is pending. Do we have it?
You have it.
Okay. All right, so I missed this meeting last time. I went out of my way to review the tape. I'm familiar with the project. Stated it for the record. All right, so do you folks like to, again, reintroduce yourselves and then have a say if you'd like?
My name's Thomas Brady. I'm a consultant assisting the Iannaccis with the application.
I'm Robert Iannacci of 38 Sunset Drive.
All right, nice to see you both. All right, so where did we leave off? John, do you have any comments on this one? Or Eileen?
Well, I think that the commission always has concerns about projects that are going up in the riverfront area. But this entire original house was already in the inner riparian, so any additions that they make are going to have to be in the inner riparian. There is an existing deck, so the new addition won't come any closer to the stream and the wetlands than it is, than the deck is already. It's a 900-foot addition on a 25,000 square foot lot, and it's on existing lawn. So we have proposed a couple of items that will, I think,
What are you saying?
I was going to propose that they put up a fence, so I was thinking that was going to assuage your concerns about it. And they have also proposed to do some plantings.
All right. Okay, so let's see if there's,
So,
go ahead.
so you had asked me earlier today about basically a prohibition of building in the inner riparian.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I looked up the regulation, the pertinent regulation 1058 4D3, which says that notwithstanding the provisions of the other sections that precede it in the riverfront regs, the issuing authority shall allow the construction of a single-family home, a septic system, if no sewer is available, and a driveway on a lot recorded before August 7th, 1996, where the size or shape of the lot within the riverfront area prevents the construction from meeting the requirements, provided that, and then it has some standards. So basically, if a lot existed before the Rivers Act, even if it's in the inner riparian, you can permit it if there's no way to configure the construction on the lot. And that's for new construction, so they could build a new house. In this case, all they're doing is building an addition and coming no closer to the river than the existing structure.
Right. So I took what you sent me and read through that. I also noticed that under the no significant adverse impact in the standard, it says if there's not enough of 100-foot wide undisturbed vegetation, then existing vegetative cover shall be preserved or extended to the maximum extent feasible. And I interpret that would be a reasonable question to ask you. To what extent do you think the project is restoring the riverfront or improving the riverfront? And I think if you have something to say about that, that would be positive, that is.
I think it's a good question. I thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to answer that as kind of a two-part question, but two-part answer. The first answer is, as staff pointed out, there certainly is a deck that is being replaced, but more significant to me is there's a portion of the house that's coming off that currently exists, and the new addition is going back in that same footprint. Second, under means and methods, what we're proposing to restrict the footprint to the maximum extent possible, what we're doing is we're doing what's called a live load situation. We're going to excavate and load into the trucks as we go, and we're going to work from the street in from the back. So it eliminates the need to take the equipment and walk around the back of the property and tear up the whole lawn and tear up the existing vegetation and give us opportunities for erosion. It's going to contain the disruption to the site in the most effective manner possible.
So impacts during construction are being minimized.
To the maximum extent. By doing that live load technique, there's no stockpile, there's no runoff. By walking in from the front with an excavator and working your way out towards the front, there's no equipment footprint in the back, there's no stockpile in the back. Even the building materials, when they're putting the addition up, are going to be placed in the front yard with an entire structure between it and the resource. So every effort has been taken to minimize that impact.
Okay, that's during construction. How about, are you doing anything with plantings or revegetation of any sort?
As you look at the property, in the back edge of the property, it's an existing turf lawn all the way onto a very small stone wall. The stone wall steps down in elevation, and then you're into the BVW, and then you get into very close to the perennial stream is very close to that. We're proposing, I believe the NOI had stated 3 red maples and 6 to 7 high bush blueberry in that area to do some improvement to improve the habitat. When we came to the last hearing, it was noted that the red maple tree that exists to the right, on the right rear of the property, had a structural failure after we had filed it. We're also proposing to remove that and put in an additional red tree to replace the vegetation that we're taking out on that side. So there will be improvements. To my mind, it's more significant that we're doing improvements right down and right up against the BVW, rather than putting them up gradient in the lawn where they would overlook the BVW. So I believe it will be a true improvement to the resource.
All right, I accept the premise of what you're saying, thank you. Any comment from the commission?
You're also infiltrating, so that, you're going to add infiltration that didn't previously exist, so that's another
Yes.
improvement to the resource area.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So Larry, as Eileen mentioned about the fence, so we've had a number of filings on this street now. This is the 4th filing out of, I think, 5 or 6 houses on the street. And the two adjacent, 34 and 36, you required the post and rail fence, 10 feet upgrading of the wetland. So that's what Eileen is referring to, in addition to the plantings behind the fence.
So that's a recommendation from you folks. Comments from the commission? They sound reasonable?
Yes.
All right. Do you have questions or agree with that?
We do have a question. If I'm 10 feet off the resource, in some cases, it appears to me, without scaling it off, it would be a post and rail fence standing 10 feet off that stone wall. So you have a 10-feet swath of what was previously usable area for the family with the young kids. So I'd like permission from the commission to place that post and rail fence immediately in up gradient of the stone wall. So it will be consistent with what has been a turf lawn for a long, long time. And then that will protect the resource. Our plantings would be behind that. So you would have the post and rail fence. Immediately adjacent would be the small stone wall, and then immediately adjacent to that would be the improvement plantings that we've
What is the
proposed.
distance from the house to the stone wall?
I don't know. I'd have to scale it off.
It varies.
Yeah, the stone wall is not a straight line, so we're going to have a variety. My point being, if we go 10 feet off the resource, we're going to take out 10 feet of what's been existing turf lawn for a long time, and that is not contiguous in elevation or consistent in vegetation to the BVW. So I believe I understand the commission's intent, and that's to have a clear visual barrier to prevent future intrusions or future dumping or future activities in the BVW. I believe by putting it immediately upgrading of the stone wall, we will accomplish that. So,
All right, comment?
Well, so the goal is to restore part of the naturally vegetated inner riparian area, and that's consistently what you required, that people give back some lawn as a part of this. So, I mean, that's what you typically require, that
Right. Could someone scale off and tell me the distance for the yard? Initial the distance for the yard?
Is it,
About
John,
40 feet,
is,
How much?
I'm sorry,
45 feet.
40, 45
to
feet?
the stone wall?
Yeah, I think so, because the stone wall is right at the BVW line, wasn't it?
so that would be the closest point of the stone wall. In some cases, it goes further
Parts,
out.
true.
Yeah, and so it would probably vary from 45 to 40 to 62, 63 feet, somewhere in there.
So John, does the lawn go up to the stone wall, behind the stone wall? Is there a
through
lawn?
the stone wall,
But, so behind the stone wall is just naturally vegetated?
right?
All right. Well,
Naturally vegetated, if I could, Mr. Chairman, naturally vegetated, but there is a good chunk in there that does not have a good shrub layer or a good tree layer once you get beyond the stone wall. And that would be the intent with the restorative plantings that we're talking about, would be to improve the habitat value down there.
What is the stone wall?
I'm not sure.
The stone wall essentially runs along at elevation 97, which is not a straight line.
Seven,
Here.
way back there, okay.
runs along
That's
elevation.
pretty close to the brook.
That's the flag.
My concern is that if we put it 10 feet up gradient of the resource, because I believe the resource comes immediately almost up adjacent to the stone wall, even if I put my restorative plantings the next elevation up, then I'm going to have an additional 18 inches to 2 feet of soil, which means my hydric soils are now not going to be there, which aren't going to support the resource we're trying to create. So I don't think we're going to accomplish the goal. I believe I understand the goal of the commission, but I don't think we'll accomplish that by pulling back lawn and putting it back, because I'm still going to have that elevation change.
This is,
So,
So what's the elevation between the upper yard and then at the bottom of the stone wall?
14 to 18 inches, which is not a lot, but since roots are in the top 12 to 18 inches, and then the water elevation in the stream that's adjacent is another 8 to 12 inches below that, that means I have 2 foot between my water table and where my roots are, which means I'll have a disconnect in terms of hydric soils and keeping those plants going. I think if I put them down below, the high bushes are going to be much happier because they like hydric soils.
I don't know if the staff was suggesting that we plant on that upper area. I don't think they were suggesting necessarily that. They were suggesting let it naturally revegetate, weren't you?
Right, and red maples would do, red
Red
maples
maples
are
would do fine.
facultative, they would do fine in there.
Agreed on the red maples.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, I can tell you that in the past, I remember a different, I'll tell the commission, we had a similar situation with a fairly narrow area, and it was a lawn, and we accepted 5 feet as at least something that was an improvement.
But you couldn't have grass anymore.
It didn't have a wall, it was just 5 feet reclaiming of the riverfront, is what it was. So I'm just throwing that out for you to think about. So does the commission have any, in this case where there's, 15, 18-inch drop,
I'm thinking like putting the wall in flood zone A, wouldn't it affect the water, flood water?
No,
Flow.
because we have the, Mr. Chairman, because you weren't here last time, my background is I'm a certified arborist, and yes, I'm also a wetland scientist.
I
but-
heard all that, and I was very impressed.
But so the water elevation obviously follows the elevation that's in the stream. So I start at my grass, then I go down 12 to 18 inches when I step off the wall. Then I go across the BVW, and then I hit the perennial, and then I go down probably another 8 to 10 inches till I'm at the mean water elevation inside the perennial stream. So I carry that back. That means I'm going to have a nexus of 26 inches for water table from there to when it comes out into the wall, best case. So it means even if we let it revegetate and go fallow, we're going to have a dry meadow up there between the fence and between what the 10-foot fence would be. I think really what we're talking about is if we go 10 feet off the resource, we'd be talking probably 6 to 7 feet of lawn that would kind of be let go.
Right, it would be behind, essentially you'd have a dryish type lawn behind the,
Exactly.
the post and rail fence is what you said.
And I had heard a suggestion during the last hearing, and so as I'm sure you heard in the tapes, about, beefing up the planting a bit to provide a barrier. I think that even seems a bit more in context and character with this particular situation. I think my client would be happy to do additional planting.
So could you explain a little bit what you mean by it?
It was a suggestion that came from the commission to say, could we supplement the planting that was proposed in the NOI as I understood it, on the upgradient side of the wall, so that would be a clear and distinct visual signal to those who are using the house not to intrude. As we all know, frankly, not to dump grass, not to dump leaves, not to use it as a compost, which we've all seen over the years happens a bit too frequently.
All right, now, so additional plantings, upgrading of the wall is what he's suggesting as an alternative to a post and rail fence. In this situation, how does the commission feel about that? Jennifer?
I understand that desire, but if all the other houses on the street have been forced to comply with a fence, it's,
Well, the question is whether you consider the alternative as requiring something as opposed to nothing.
And is the grade the same at the other houses? Do they have more level before it goes down? I mean, what's that area?
I can't remember. They're probably similar.
Pretty
I would
similar.
imagine they're similar.
Similar distance to the brook?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Anyone else have a comment? I don't want to put people on the spot if you're not sure, or...
I don't know, I also understand that you want to have the yard so that your kids can go outside and play, and I personally am a big fan of getting people outside, so.
Yeah, so we hate to lose.
So I'm a sucker for that, but, I think it's important to be consistent as well, so maybe we could have a.
Anyone else have a comment before I give a comment?
It's hard to say how consistent we're being in terms of what percentage of the existing lawn we're taking away. I mean, I didn't really get a good look at the other properties. Is this one more constrained than the other properties? Are we taking away a bigger chunk by taking 10 feet? I don't know. I don't have a problem with a post and rail fence. Looking at this property, would not object to the post and rail fence being at the wall. I think it would still be a demarcation. And with that gradient, I mean, we're not trying to recreate additional wetland.
No.
You keep saying it's upland. Well, it is still, we're trying to protect the buffer. We're not trying to make hydric soils where they don't
Right.
exist.
It is in riverfront, and there's supposed to be improvement when you're in riverfront.
Right,
I actually was thinking a little differently from you.
Yeah.
I was thinking that in terms of riverfront improvement, vegetation improvement, they're offered to plant additional vegetation as, after discussion with staff, agreed to with staff.
Yes.
It would seem to be, would more satisfy the aims of the riverfront regulations. That's the way I was looking at it.
It'd be more natural than a fence.
Yeah, I mean, a fence isn't particularly
Right,
natural.
right,
And if they're going to make some plantings and use that as a demarcation and an enhancement to the vegetation,
Well, the fence is not supposed to enhance it's just actually supposed to just keep people out.
right,
I mean, which
right.
I mean, I think you kind of need to have both there, because the problem is with dumping and things like that, I mean, you could say you're not going to do that, but, then the fence may not last that long either, but, you may not live there you may decide in a couple of years, like, oh, I'm leaving, so that.
I'm thinking, Gail, of a similar situation where we just required plantings. There was no wall to
Right.
around, and we got 5 feet, and we said, okay, we just agreed to that.
I guess I don't remember that. I mean, I honestly, for this one here, I probably don't feel like that I can vote on this because I haven't seen it. And I don't feel like I can actually, I don't know where this wall is, I don't know what it looks like, and I just feel that I'd be basing it on what I think if it was like perfect condition where it was, there was level land and we wanted to reclaim riverfront, whether this grade means that, did you look at any of the soils up there or anything? You've seen it, I haven't seen it, but I also know that in a lot, I don't know which property you're talking about, the reclaiming the 5 feet, but I know that we.
It's been a couple of years, 2 or 3 years
Okay,
ago.
all right, so, not very recent, okay.
No, it's not
So,
very
but I, usually, when there is riverfront, we usually try to, improve it and try to reclaim some area that historically was made into lawn. But again, I haven't seen the site. There's some drop off here, it's,
The wall's really only a few inches tall.
so it's not, it's not,
Yeah. I mean, it's not, really- it's,
well, most lawns are though. I mean, what, you said the lawn is only a few inches, the
No, the
wall, oh, I was gonna say
You're
the
talking
lawn,
about-
it's like, yeah, that's what it was.
All right.
it's not really.
So,
Gotcha.
But it's
I
high
gotcha.
enough
Okay,
to
so,
stop a lawnmower.
anyways, we need
High enough to stop a
we need to
lawnmower,
move along. Hello, everyone, we need to move along, so we need to make a decision. The way we'll make a decision is someone just make a motion to show the preference of the commission, and we'll either vote that or vote vegetation, or vote vegetation and a wall. We'll vote the location of the wall, whatever you want to, I will entertain a motion on anything.
Okay, I move that I would consider giving back 5 feet and demarcating with additional plantings.
All right. Is there a second? I'll assume that's a motion.
Second.
Okay. All right, so I think we have, I don't know if we have to debate the merits of it, other than just vote, so, any discussion?
I look at it as being consistent in requiring a barrier,
Something.
something, yes,
So-
in that sense.
So, just looking at the scale on this, where would 5 feet bring you? Would that, I mean, where does the lawn go? It goes up to this wall, is that correct?
Yeah, right up to
And that's
the
at the
wall.
97?
Wall's a clear demarcation.
So it would be somewhere between the 97 and then, it would be not very far, because an inch is 30 feet on this. So it'd be a couple of millimeters beyond.
All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed?
Abstain.
All abstaining? 402, it carries. Resolved. Thank you. Okay. Otherwise, we'll go on here all night talking about something that we need to just make a decision. Okay. All right, so is there anything else? We talked about the riverfront regulations. Anyone from the commission? Anything that needs to be addressed? Are we all set with the drainage? You have the galley detail, okay.
And they've done a volume
Is
calculation.
this,
Okay,
the
is
slope
it-
look good here?
What?
The slope, is it any erosion or anything like that there?
Erosion control?
No? Okay.
There's no erosion.
All right.
All right, is there anyone in the audience for this? This is 38 Sunset Ave, Sunset Drive. No. All right, so we have a draft decision. Let's review it and then vote. Did I hear you're a conservation commissioner?
You did, sir. I'm an agent. Yes.
Oh, you're an agent,
Yes, sir.
not a commissioner?
No, I was for many years in Woburn, 14 years.
Ah,
14 years in Woburn, 6 as the chair.
okay, so you're the agent in Woburn,
No, I was on the commission in Woburn. I'm the agent in Brookline.
in Brookline.
Yes. I've been in Brookline for 19 years.
All right, got it. All right,
Where Heather worked with him.
Yes.
Just going to say that's
Heather from me, thank you very much. Heather sends her regards for those who recall that I spoke with her this afternoon. She asked me to make sure I passed along her greetings.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, we've been fortunate to have some very talented people join us.
Yes, she's terrific.
The commissions. All right, so let's do the review and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, I'm going to start with the bylaw. So this project is, at this time, it is the construction of an addition to a single-family dwelling within the 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetlands and within the 200-foot riverfront area to Longmeadow Brook. The next part is the filing history, and then we reference the plan that you submitted. And then the next page goes on to discuss the wetland values in areas subject to protection. The proposed work was within the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW and within the RFA. The parcel also contains bordering land subject to flooding, although the work appears to be outside the floodplain. The closest point of the proposed work is approximately 45 feet from BVW. The Commission finds that wetland delineation is generally accurate, however, the Commission is not officially approving the delineation. Down to stormwater management, this is actually exempt from the bylaw, but the applicant is proposing to infiltrate the new rooftop area using an array of infiltrators. Erosion and sediment controls will be implemented during construction, minimizing any impact to the resource areas. The Commission had concerns regarding the encroachment into the riparian zone. The Commission will require, is there some wording you'd prefer other than fence? Additional plantings to be installed 5 feet.
From the wall. Okay?
planting
And
barrier
to
or
be,
shrub barrier.
to be approved by staff.
Okay. This permit under the Burlington Wetland Protection Bylaw may also serve as a permit under the Burlington's Erosion and Sedimentation Control Bylaw. Most of the rest of this one is standard, down to the decision, which contains a few conditions. Conditions 1 through 51 of the order of conditions, which I'll go over in a minute, is adopted. There's going to be, we will require a cash performance guarantee in the amount of $2,500 for the length of the project. And the contractor and our applicant shall be fined for any not applicable non-compliance with these conditions. And staff shall not sign off on a temporary occupancy permit until the following items have been met. You have to comply with the order of conditions, resolve any violations, stabilize exposed areas, and we will make a site inspection. But just to go on to the order of conditions, which is the other piece of paper that I gave you, or that
All
John
right,
gave you.
before we go,
Yep.
let's, are there any comments on the findings? I actually had a comment. I'd like, Eileen, could we add under riverfront area restoration, could we put in a sentence or two about the plantings that are proposed, that the commission finds that the plantings are an improvement to the riverfront habitat or whatever?
Do you mean the maples?
The maples and whatever he said for vegetation, you know, that the riverfront is somewhat improved. The applicant, I don't know how to word it, but
Well, it does, the second sentence does say 3 red maples and 5 high bush blueberries shall be planted in front of the existing stone wall to enhance the riparian buffer.
So can I just ask a question? So wasn't it agreed that if there's no fence, there's supposed to be additional plantings, right?
right,
So it's not just the 3 and the 5?
right,
Right, okay.
right. There should be, and
That's my
they should
point.
mention additional plantings as well.
As well as the planting barrier that we're talking about?
No. What plantings that they originally proposed, plus what we agreed to, are, and I wanted to point out that it is enhancing the riverfront area
And providing a barrier.
and providing a barrier.
But what did you agree to? Did you give a number of plantings?
No. But you will see that it does enhance, right?
But it's also to provide a barrier.
But we're saying the commission will require an additional planting barrier, or some words to that effect. 5 feet from the wetland.
5 feet in front of the wall.
And the 3.
5 feet in front of the wall.
Right, in front of the wall. and their maples and high bush blueberry.
Right, okay, that's fine. Let's not debate it too much unless there's a problem.
So, but the question is, are you requesting significantly more plantings than the 3 and the 5? Yes.
Yes.
To make a barrier, enough
Are
to
you
make a
looking for
barrier.
like a hedge? Are you looking for like a row of plantings as opposed to?
Not necessarily a formal row, but yes, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, the applicant would be amenable to either a hedgerow such as arborvitae, which is not great from a wetland point of view, except it's got the berry load. We can tilt towards the species that has the heavy berry load
You'll get eaten alive.
for birds. Well, the deer, they're getting eaten alive on the backside by the deer for sure.
Yeah,
In
the front.
But on the front side, so be it, is a consideration. Or if you want to do a more naturalistic planting, that is, a couple layers of plant material at different heights, we can do that as well.
Do you have a preference?
No, we can work that out, but, so it'll be basically a hedge-type row, that's fine.
All right, okay, that's fine.
One more quick question, Mr.
Sure,
Chair, if I could?
sure.
Just to make sure, would it be permissible to work with staff to consider wattles if deemed appropriate, as opposed to the state K-bills?
Usually, the staff has discretion to
Okay.
alter erosion controls if
Okay,
they feel it appropriate.
Thank you. And then on condition number 2, just to make sure I'm using the same verbiage, this is a cash performance guarantee.
Yep.
Performance bond is okay on that, I assume?
We would prefer a cash. The bonds can expire. We've had some issues with that before.
Okay. All right, I'll work with staff on that, because I haven't been able to successfully get a cash performance guarantee in the form of a bond for a straight homeowner. So,
All right, work with
It's
staff.
just a check that we deposit and we refund.
We do the bond.
you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's review the notice of intent, the conditions.
Okay, most of the first page are standard conditions that we have in pretty much every order. Onto the second page, it starts with the pre-construction conditions. You're going to let us know 2 to 5 days before you start any activity, so that we can visit with you on site. Number 31 lists the things that we will be looking at when we visit. At that point, you should already have put in your erosion controls that, as explained on number 30, that shall be clearly marked with stakes, flags, barriers. Oh, sorry, actually, the erosion controls are mentioned on 32. The erosion controls should be installed along the erosion control line as shown on the reference plan. Materials shall not be stockpiled on site within 20 feet of the wetlands or street. No dewatering on this site. At the end of the workday, the applicant shall keep the town roads clear. The Commission has reserves the right to require additional erosion and/or damage prevention controls. No additional grading beyond that which is shown on the approved plan shall be permitted without filing a written request with the Conservation Commission. Any debris that falls into the wetlands shall be immediately removed by hand. No discharge or spillage of fuel, oil, or other pollutants on site. In the event that there's a spill, the applicant shall notify the Conservation Commission and Board of Health. No refueling within 50 feet of the wetlands or streams. On to page 4. Again, the next couple are standard about no more than 50 gallons of fuel and reporting odorous evidence of hazardous substances. No pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides shall be used within 100 feet of the wetlands, and that's going to be a condition in perpetuity. Rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated on site as shown in the approved plans. To prevent encroachment, a shrub line shall be erected 5 feet from the rock wall and BVW to protect the BVW and RFA. I'm going to remove the part about the fence because we're not going to do that. No temporary occupancy permit sign-off shall occur prior to this demarcation being installed. At least 3 red maples and 5 high bush blueberry shrubs shall also be planted on site to provide riverfront area improvement. The planting shall be approved by a wetland scientist. Shrubs shall be monitored for 2 full growing seasons, and those that fail to survive within that time shall be replaced. And no certificate of compliance shall be issued. It just explains what you need to do to actually get your certificate of compliance. Do you have any questions about those?
Well, of course, if you do have questions, you can always address them to the staff after the fact if necessary, for clarification. Thank you. All right, so is there anything further from the commission on this? All right, then we will...
Mr. Chairman, I was absent in last meeting, so I would be abstaining.
You're abstaining? All right, so if there's nothing further, nothing from the audience, then we have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-623. Second?
Second.
All in favor? 402? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote, 402. Could I have a motion to approve the order of conditions under State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-623?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Same vote. Could I have a motion to require the applicant to post a cash performance bond of $2,500 under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-623? Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? 4501. Okay.
I can vote on the
Caught
bottom.
me off guard. All right. I guess if there's nothing further, good luck with your project, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I just haven't seen this site.
Okay.
Looks like if I haven't seen it.
All right. All right, we're on item number... What's that?
Your wife had the baby?
Oh, not yet. Any day now.
Good luck.
Gee, that wasn't a wetlands question. All right, have a good evening. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing during which time will take information related to a request for an amendment to a Burlington Wetland Bylaw permit originally issued to Robert A. Hearn for the proposed demolition of a house and construction of two houses at 36 Mill Street in Burlington. The amendment application is by owner Beverly Van Nostrand for the demolition of a house and construction of three houses. The application is being heard pursuant to Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The proposed work would be within locally regulated riverfront area. The commission will be reviewing all information relative to the application and thereafter may issue an amended wetlands bylaw permit. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you tonight?
Good. For the record, Stephen Dresser, Dresser Williams and Way, representing Beverly Van Nostrand, the project before you. As stated, the project is at 36 Mill Street. It's a modification to an existing order. Ms. Van Nostrand cannot be here tonight. She's in Florida and didn't want to come up to the snow. The property is located on Mill Street. It's next to a power easement, which takes up a significant part of the property. The fact that the easement is there, it gives Eversource a significant control over the property, clearing in there, some control over access points, and specifically subsurface drainage. They do not want within that easement, and they have the power to control that. They have ground wires that run through the easement. They can't hold any kind of water into the subsurface infiltration. As stated, the filing, it's a local bylaw only. We're greater than 100 feet from the BVW as determined from that past filing. It is, however, within what the local stream would be. It's on that Appendix A. There was a determination in the last filing that it was almost certainly intermittent. However, we do need to file as a result of that. The 2016 filing was for 2 lots. The property was subdivided into 3 lots in 2005. My understanding is that particular subdivision got approved with a common driveway, and when it came time to file for building those 3 homes, it was determined by the building inspector that local ordinances do not allow common driveways. So therein lied a problem, talked to Eversource at the time, and they decided to just move on with 2 lots for that particular filing. Since that time, Ms. Van Ostrin kind of spoke to the local officials and also with Eversource and came up with this schematic with the local ordinances of the Burlington zoning. It's the intent of this to kind of mirror that initial filing. We're using the subsurface, all the roofs are going into infiltration. The driveway is going into a rain garden, which they will allow because it's open, and it flows into that. We have submitted, full site plans, erosion control and such. We are planting areas. In the prior plan, there was witch hazel and the planting, I think a silver webrium, in those green areas. So we're trying to put as much planting back as we can, taking into account that there is subsurface infiltration, the driveways, and because of the easement, the utilities actually go up behind the houses, so the water and the sewer, there's a sewer easement on that back side there. That's it. We do, we are, again, trying to do that. We're familiar with the order of conditions. Those conditions in there are area design. Take your comments, any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you for that summary. All right. John or Eileen, comments?
So first, just a logistical thing, this will expire soon, so the extent, this amendment does not serve as an extension, so you'll also have to require an extension. I think it expires maybe in June.
I think that's what you said.
I believe. So you'll also have to do that. So I remember reviewing this as 3 lots originally, and I can't remember if it came before the commission as 3 lots before you ended up approving it as 2, because she had to sort of backtrack because of her failure to negotiate with M-Star for the driveways. So this is.
Wasn't one going to be like off to the side originally, or no? Wasn't there one more over towards the left before in the back there or something?
No,
or-
they were all lined up
They
like
were all
that,
lined
because to
up?
the left of
Okay.
that is the power lines, so
Right.
they're really hard up against the
Yeah,
power
I
lines.
just remember
there.
walking there, I just couldn't remember the third one.
So you've sort of seen it as 3, you approved it as 2, this is back to the 3. So there's more riverfront disturbance with this than the one you approved. This is more impervious. It's all outside the inner riparian. It is a really small intermittent stream. When we did the delineation, it was dry. So, but it's on our streams map because it's a tributary to Sawmill Brook down near Rahanis Park. It flows down towards Rahanis and into the stream down there. But it is fairly far away. So I don't really have any concerns with this. I mean, I remember reviewing it as 3 originally, so.
There's
right.
no ledge on this side, right? It's all on the other side of closer to the easement.
Exposed ledges on that side. They did do test holes for that prior filing. We're good, but you never know when you're gonna dig, but there's no exposed ledge on this side.
All right, let's go and see if there's any issues that can't be addressed immediately. We'll make note of it, and you'll get back to us on it. All right. Gail?
So, if I remember right, there's a lot of trees through here. It's kind of a pretty lot. In the back there's a lot of trees.
Other than the easement, yeah.
Yeah. And, so are you, I didn't see, and I might have missed it, but I didn't see like a planting plan, or do you have something in terms of?
Well, those
what you're-
green areas that are the areas where planting is
I guess you
feasible.
want to submit like kind of, what you expecting to plant in there to kind of replace the trees and
It's
stuff?
listed on there. There's
It
shrubs.
is?
Which hazel
one
and
is it
maple
on?
leaf viburnum.
Yeah, there's,
Which one is it on?
Just a note down, just a note down.
Sheet 3?
Which plan?
I was looking for a chart.
Site layout.
And so about, are each one of those crosses supposed to be a tree? Or what's the number? It says 18 to 24 inch. And those are all low shrubs, none of those are trees.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that 7 foot on center would be how they were planted, and that, again, is mirrored from the
Oh, I
existing.
see, yeah.
They
So are you,
mirrored from the existing order conditions that was.
right, so these are more like kind of shrub kind of things? Proposing to actually plant any trees, so there are a lot of trees in there.
Yeah, we're not gonna mirror those trees.
No, but I,
The maple leaf arborvitae,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's.
Pardon?
I'm not an.
no, but maple
I'm
leaf
not an
viburnum
arborist.
is like a shrub, it's not a tree. Yeah, neither of these
I
are.
mean, again, all we did was mirror the order. Certainly, if you have other suggestions,
I don't know, there's,
it wouldn't be a
it's been,
problem at all.
it's been, what, 2-3 years that we walked that? So I remember it, being this beautiful, like glen, kind of, and nice trees and stuff, and it would be a shame not to have some trees on the lots, and,
Well, Gail, does our regulations for the bylaw specify a tree replacement?
I think they do they?
What?
I don't think they do they?
Do they? John or Eileen?
We talked about it, but
Well, we have a buffer zone policy, but
yeah.
not for riverfront, so it's not a specific.
Not as specific.
And this doesn't, because it's outside the 100 foot, wouldn't trigger like, if you're disturbing to, not improvement, but at least kind of have some kind of, not one-to-one, but, if you're disturbing it and you're degrading it, is there any expectation that there's some replacement?
It's up to you. I mean, I think part of the reason initially was because it's right up against the easement, and NSTAR is frequently asking permission to cut trees.
Right, but the houses
beyond.
are outside that, aren't they?
Well, the houses have to be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so I mean like on the house lots, it'd be nice to have a tree. House lot.
All right, so,
'Cause these are just shrubs, they're not trees.
all right. All right, so let's
And
list this as planting plan for trees, and let's give this some thought. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Given that we're taking down so much of it, it seems reasonable for the commission to ask for trees to replace it.
One of the plans on a prior filing, I don't know if it was the subdivision plan or not, shows about 30 trees coming down.
Coming down. It's
That's,
a pretty
that's
area.
what's proposed now?
That's,
Come down.
that's how many are in that area.
Okay.
They're probably 6 inch plus, I'm guessing, counting them all.
Are you talking about existing or proposed?
What's there now, so that's what's gonna come out, so I think it's very reasonable to ask that.
Yeah, so let's ask the question and have you take a look at it. How's that? Okay. All right. Gail, anything further? Good point.
No, go ahead.
All right,
Just look at the drainage now.
Kendra?
Yeah, in the same note, what are you providing between these two driveways, that strip I see, rain garden?
That's like a rain garden, so everything would be pitched
No,
down.
I see the rain garden up to this, but above,
Above that?
yeah, that straight, between this driveway.
Well, it's
Any
within the
trees or
power
anything?
easement, so I don't think we
Oh,
can
is the
put
power
trees in. Yeah, the power easement is basically right up against the front of the houses.
All right.
It's, pink line, the pink dash line on that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That dotted line.
Doesn't-
Got it. Okay.
It's marked in one of these drawings.
All right. Bill, you have any issues or comments or questions?
First of all, considering how constrained this is by that power right-of-way, the easement, I'm impressed that you're able to do what you've done. I mean, that's really squeezing a lot in.
Squeezing a third house.
Well, the
I
third
think
house,
you give the credit to Beverly's, she's
the third driveway, I mean, everything else.
the go-getter, and
My concern with trees, again, is not only replacing the ones you take out, but where are you gonna take them out? The trees, I remember these being a nicely rounded, hilly and covered with trees and stuff. So I'd like to see, minimizing those that are coming out, and then doing some kind of,
So you're asking if any trees are being preserved?
Yes, I want to make sure that they're not clearing all of these lots, of the trees that are there.
It's going to be hard.
The ones that are necessary for construction, of course. But
Fit in there.
if there are any that can be preserved, that would be something I would like to see.
All right, I just listened.
And the rain garden, so both of those driveways are going to pitch towards it from the side? Okay. And what about the third driveway in front of the first house? Is that going to pitch to a drainage ditch or something?
It was not designed to do that. I can look into that if you'd
Okay,
like.
yeah, we want to sketch that too if we can.
Jill, I'm sorry, related to the rain garden, I just thought of something. Is there going to be some kind of, is there between the driveways, some kind of protection so that, you know, when they plowed, the rain gardens don't get torn up, they're kind of in a vulnerable area, and especially when you think about how, you know, the guy that comes to plow at 4 in the morning, not really paying attention to that kind of thing.
I'll think of that one too.
Yeah, I mean,
Come up
it's,
with something.
yeah, it's just, I mean, it would be nice if they lasted more than, you know, the first season.
All right, could we go back to that, the drainage on the driveway? It looks like the lower half of driveway number 2 and 3 will drain into the rain garden from the left and from the right. Is that true?
Yes, yep.
And what about the upper part of the driveway? What do you propose to handle?
Well, if you look at the drainage pattern, it may go overland, but it will essentially come down into that.
So you're looking at the,
Your high point kind of
so you're looking at the area between driveway 2 and 3, drainage, draining it like this, into like this, and then
Yes.
getting into the rain garden.
Correct.
And so does the grading reflect that somehow, so that when it's constructed, it will come out that way?
Yeah.
Does?
We'll make sure it's clearer than that.
Okay, so can we say you'll clarify?
That's the intent.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I just couldn't read that somewhere in the drawing. Or-
Well, Larry, I'm sorry to keep going on the rain garden here. Is there, well, I drive that way, you know, every day, twice a day, early in the morning when it's iced over. Is there any, I mean, did you submit any statistics or data to show that this rain garden can take the amount of water that's going to be coming off these really long driveways? That part of the road is very curvy, and whenever it's cold, it's icy. I've spun out there once.
I believe it's sized for a 2-year storm, which is 3, I believe, for
But
3 inches
for-
of rain.
taking into
thereabouts.
account
I
the
mean,
amount of driveway?
It's not going to, for large storms, there's going to be some outflow from it.
Is that sizing based on the runoff from the driveway?
Correct, yeah.
I just wonder, if those are long driveways that are coming out to the street, really
Yes.
long driveways. And then big houses as well that are gonna
Now, in case if
The houses are
have
all gutted
infiltrators,
into
yeah.
infiltration systems, so
Right,
it's just
so
the
it's only the
driveway.
driveway drainage
Just
we're
the
talking about.
Only the driveways.
Yeah, it's a long driveway, but I assume you have sized your rain garden to be appropriate for that?
Yeah, I believe it's for a 2-year, for 3.1 inches of rain.
So that's an especially important that this is actually a structure that remains permanent, because we've seen ones that have disappeared and gravel along driveways have disappeared.
So the 2-year rainfall is 3.1 inches,
Yes.
and in 20 years,
I'll review that, I'll see.
in 20 years, it will be higher.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the drainage calculations, and I don't see any reference to the rain garden at all. There's roof
I believe
runoff.
that's how it was done though, but I'll put
three.
those in, and if I can make it bigger, I will, with that circumstance.
Make it become a wetland.
Okay, Bill, did I ask you yet?
Yes. I'm
Okay. Ed, anything further? Jen, anything further? Okay. Well, no, I think this addressed the issues that I have. Jennifer, Eileen or John, anything further on issues they need to look at?
No. Has the planning board looked at this?
It's already an approved, so the lots are approved.
But But since the access to the lots changed, does that mean the amendment, the subdivision approval has to be amended?
Beverly's been doing the perk, to be honest with you, so I don't know that she's contacted with him, but she seems like she's spoken to everybody.
Because it seems like there'll be additional access easements required that may not have, you know, like the rear lot actually crosses 3 lots, right? So, I mean, the planning board might want to
Need
take,
easement plans, typically that's not, if it's on an existing lot, that's not something that's controlled by the planning board. They're only looking at the amount of frontage and the
Yeah,
actual road construction, but we'll follow that out, make sure it's followed.
John, I have one question on this. Is there any, adding the extra house, do you see that as substantially increasing the potential for damage or harm to the riverfront based on adding that third house? Because if that was the case, it would perhaps not qualify as an amendment, it might qualify as requiring a new notice of intent. So I'm wondering what your thinking is on that.
well, so the amendment process is basically almost as detailed as filing, the new filing. It requires a butter notification. It's basically, it's just a different form, but you're reopening the hearing, and you're able to review it just like you would if it was a new wetland bylaw filing, so.
But if the basic original order is not sufficiently protective in a big way, then that would necessitate a new filing.
No, you could add additional conditions under the amendment to compensate for any, you know, deficiencies in the original conditions.
All right.
If this were filed under the Wetlands Act, if this were riverfront area under the Wetlands Protection Act, I would say that it probably would require a new notice of intent.
Okay.
But under the bylaw, you've got a little more flexibility. It's your call. But you certainly, under the amendment procedure, have the ability to add as many additional conditions as you want to the original conditions, so.
And of course, given the change in the project, you folks will be reviewing the existing order for exactly that
Right.
reason. Okay. All right. Just thought worthy of some discussion. All right. I asked Ed and Jen, right? All set. Okay, is there anyone in the audience for this? This is an amendment to 36 Mill Street? No. All right, so here's what I have for a list, Mr. Dresser. Tell me if this sort of follows along with you. I saw you taking notes, so I suspect you're there. One is, I have a note about planting plan for trees, to have some trees to replace what's being taken down. We talked about that being reasonable. And we talked about what can be done to preserve to the maximum extent the existing trees.
Yep.
I have a note here, something about drainage on the driveway. You're going to review that?
Yes.
Okay, I guess you're going to review the size of the rain garden, is what you said.
Yep.
And Gail asked about not tearing up the rain garden in the first year, so
I'll
Having
put
a
in
way to
some type of
protect it.
protection for the.
some type of protection, okay,
So
from
removal.
plowing.
Will make it functional.
Okay, that's good.
Protection of the-
And then I have grading to promote, you're going to add some grading to make it clear that the grading promotes drainage from driveway 2 and 3 to be conducted into that rain garden.
Correct. Yep.
And I repeated possibly making the rain garden bigger, okay. Did you have anything else? Okay.
I'm assuming we have no way of like putting in, condition, enforcing anything, not for you, but, you know, when these houses get sold and so forth, preventing a homeowner from just paving over the rain garden.
I don't know, there was a perpetual condition in the original order. And
They
it's-
could be fined for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's close to the street, so it's visible.
I
so
know,
it'd be
I've
easy to
just seen
detect.
like
You're gonna
swale,
drive by
like
every day.
drainage along driveways and stuff removed and, you know, once people move in.
And we do retain the authority to fine on a per-day basis,
Yeah.
so.
So the rain garden was in the original drawings?
It was, yeah.
One other thing to add was we talked about clarifying how the the single driveway is going to be pitched and drained.
Okay.
So it's a
Rain
single-
gardens, if they're done right, they're almost an amenity. They're not something that anyone would necessarily want to pave over.
No, I
There's
know that, yeah.
Aesthetic value to it.
Yeah.
And I think where the location is, it's not likely that anybody would go in there and
Okay, I put
deliberately
that down.
disturb it.
Okay. Clarify the drainage on driveway 1. Yes. All right, so the next meeting will be March 14th.
Okay,
And we'll see you then.
great.
Great, thank you very much. All right. Okay, next is item 7. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing, during which time we have information related to a notice of intent filed by Iconic Capital LLC for the demolition of a commercial building and the construction of a new office building located at 328-330 Cambridge Street in Burlington. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands, and is under the State Wetlands Protection Act, and is also under the jurisdiction of Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The commission will review all information relative to the application and may issue an order of conditions. The application's available for public review in the Conservation Commission's office. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Christine Hung from Reamer and Bronstein, attorney for the applicant, Iconic Capital. I have with me tonight, as part of the project team, Frank DePietro and Kate Rimmel of the BSC Group. We're before you guys tonight on a request to for the commission to issue an order of conditions at the property located at 328 to 230 Cambridge Street.
328.
328 to 330
Right,
Cambridge Street.
right.
The applicant is looking to demolish the existing buildings and to construct a one-story, 21,500 square foot office building. Part of the project activities are within the 100-foot bordering vegetated wetlands. I'm going to turn the mic over now to Frank and Kate, who can talk on a more technical basis on this project.
That's fine. Okay, very good.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Frank DePietro, a civil engineer with the BSC Group. For years, the commission has had to listen to me drone on about projects, so I'm very pleased to announce tonight that my associate, Kate Rimmel, will be doing at least part of the presentation.
She's gonna
Kate-
drone? She's gonna drone on?
Well, she doesn't drone on. No, she's a wetland scientist, very competent and knowledgeable, and I'm sure you're going to find her presentation much more interesting than my droning on later on, so I'll turn it over to Kate.
With that introduction, I don't know how you can go wrong.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Kate Rimmel, wetland scientist on this project. So I'm going to give a brief overview of existing conditions at the site. So the site, which is comprised of 2 parcels, is located at 328 to 330 Cambridge Street. It's currently occupied by a small commercial building, associated parking areas, and at the rear of the site, there's a small cell phone tower that's a fenced-in area. So the wetlands were delineated in August of this past year. One wetland was identified at the site. I'll point that out over here. So again, as I said, one wetland was identified at the rear of the site. It's marked by these flags back here. It's a low-lying depressional area, forested wetland, and portions of the buffer zone extended to the project limits. So with that, I'll turn it over to Frank for an overview of the project.
Maybe not for the record, that was Kate's first presentation. So,
Very good, well done.
Thank you.
as
Did you just join BSC Group
A couple years ago,
a couple of years ago?
we're acquainted with.
All right, well, it's nice to see a different face from BSC.
Yes, this whole face is pretty worn out by now. Again, the project site is on Cambridge Street. Probably the best landmark is Lakash's and the forest right over here, and the gas station in Wilmington Road, 62 is there. Chestnut Ave, I'm going to go back to the aerial for a second, just to give you the overview. So again, this is the project site here. It's composed of 2 lots, about 3.3 acres. This is the lot, cell tower, the existing buildings right here. There's a small shed over in this area here, back in this plot. Cambridge Street is right here. This is Chestnut Avenue, Alma Road, and then, again, the signal, the 62 is right over in that area. So, as was noted by Christine, the existing building, which is about a 17,000 square foot building, there's about 1.1 acres of impervious area on the site right now, existing conditions. What we're looking to do is we'll be putting in an office building, 1-story, 21,000 square foot office building here. We'll be having an access off of Chestnut Avenue that will have some parking spaces here. The proposed tenant has a need for 80 parking spaces for staff and 5 visitor spaces. So we have 6 spaces here. There'll be a 14-foot wide one-way driveway beside the building going to the back. So these cars can go up, the other cars will be going to the rest of the site. The main access will be from Cambridge Street, about where the existing driveway is right now. There'll be parking in the front, there's parking in the rear. This parcel is interesting because it is in 2 different zones. The front part is in the IG zone, which allows commercial, retail, office development. The rear part, which composes most of the wetlands, is in a residential, an RO zone. So we're not looking to do any of our development, which is why there's a sharp delineation in where we have parking and stuff like that. There'll be a total of 85 parking spaces. We will be maintaining the existing cell tower, which, while maybe small in area, is 120 feet tall, so it's a visible landmark in the area. What we're proposing to do, a little bit cluttered here, is if you're out on the site, you'll note there's a relatively good grade difference from the easterly side, the westerly side. This elevation is about 166 or so in elevation. Here it's about 176, 177. Our game plan would be to essentially build up the site so that the 176 elevation is sort of the front door of the site. The reason why we have this small driveway is it's at a lower elevation. So this will be more or less at grade. The driveway will then come up, and we'll be filling this area of the site to essentially put it on grade with the building so you can park it. There will be a grade up from this point. We're probably in this back area having maybe in the order of about 3 feet of fill to about 6 or 7 feet of fill in this area here. And I'll come back to that in a minute because it pertains to the drainage of the site. Because we're doing some filling, we've got retaining walls along the edges of the site here, along this area here. There's a retaining wall here as we go up grade to the back of the site for this parking area. And there are some retaining walls along this area here as well. Again, to try to maintain, there's an existing conduit that runs through, serves the cell tower. So we're trying to maintain that. What we're looking to do under existing conditions is a good portion of the site drains out into 3A, which is a state roadway, and they don't like to have drainage in their roadway system, so we're going to redirect that. The rest of the site essentially runs off, no treatment, into the wetland areas to the north part of the site. Under our new proposal, we will be putting in a state-of-the-art drainage system, water quality units, and doing some recharge. We have not done test pits for drainage, but we conducted a phase 1 and phase 2 21E study on the site. So we have existing test pits in the area. So there are 2 test pits here. There are 2 test pits here that went down. Under existing conditions, we found water about 4 feet below existing grade. So by raising this site, it allows us the clearance we need to put in an infiltration system in this area here. This portion of the site and the roof will be going into the infiltration system. We have a catch basin to pick up this area. It goes, this is a water quality catch basin, which the staff will talk about in a little bit. It discharges directly after being treated into the wetland area over in here.
So, Mr. DePietro, could you just go through that just a little bit slower?
Sure.
So you don't have to go through it all again.
Yeah, no problem.
So the roof is going into the infiltration area?
That is correct. It will go directly into the infiltration area.
All right, and then could you go over the rest of it?
Sure. So this portion of the parking area,
Yeah.
this area, not counting and actually this portion, is picked up by a series of catch basins, runs through a water quality unit, and then goes into the infiltration system. This portion up here, which is at a higher elevation, is actually graded such that it will run into, essentially it will be a bioretention area. So it'll be treated and then be discharged back out in this area, and then this portion of the site here, this lower area will be picked up in a catch basin. There's also a water quality unit, and then discharged directly into the wetlands area after treatment. We are substantially reducing the runoff to Cambridge Street, which probably don't really care about. For the various storms, we are reducing the peak flows and the volumes anywhere from 100 year, I think it's about a 3%, so a very minor reduction, to probably on the order of a 30% reduction of flows. Again, they're going into the ground, into the infiltration system, but the direct peak runoff from the site is reduced below existing conditions on the site. We are proposing the typical water quality and also the erosion control. So with that, I'll be happy to turn it over to any questions that you might have for Kate or myself.
Okay, good, thank you. John or Eileen, do you have any comments so far?
Okay, first off, we have not reviewed the wetland flags, but given that this hearing will be going into March or April, we probably won't be able to review the wetland flags. First off. Secondly, I would strongly recommend that the commission require the test pits be done and witnessed by the Board of Health prior to closing the hearing. We've had the unfortunate circumstances in the not too distant past where we relied on the geotechnical stuff and we approved a design, and then they actually went in and did the test pits and they.
I remember we had a case not too long ago.
Right.
Right.
And as Mr. DePietro alluded to, I do have some, a little bit of some quibbles with the water quality units, both the sequence of them on the southern side of the building, rather than, I think that it should be catch basin and then go into a water quality unit rather than vice versa. But also, the TSS removal rates that they're claiming for the inlet water quality units, which I'm not really sure what the models are, but the equivalent storm scepters, DEP generally tells us to use 25% TSS removal for those kind of structures, and they're claiming 77% on the NOI. So the inlet storm scepters don't get the same as an offline storm scepter. And I also had the question about, I think it's the south side, right? The right-hand side of the building, whether or not it could actually be put into the infiltrator rather than discharged into the wetlands. And I understand that there may be some height levels or something that precludes it, but if possible, that would be good to get into the infiltrator as well.
So they can look at that. My recollection, just looking at the grades, is that that grade where that catch basin is probably around elevation 168. We're probably 174, so we're down about 4 feet, maybe around 170 for our bottom of our infiltration system. But we can certainly look at that. If we could tie it in, we'll do that. I'm not sure that we can.
All right.
That's fine.
On the south side,
It's sort of the easterly side, I guess.
easterly side?
The angle, you can see the north arrow at the top, so
Okay.
we're on the,
That's the easterly side.
Yeah.
Okay.
The side,
Narrow driveway.
right on the narrow driveway. It's on here, there's a landscape company.
Yeah, yeah.
so that is a driveway that goes around the back of the building?
Yes.
then? Is that for general access, emergency access, or?
It is for the access to the site for the employees. We haven't been to the planning board, but we anticipated that they would want to have a second access that typically is what the planning board wants. At the departmental coordination meeting, I don't remember if there was any people from the fire department. It didn't come up at the DCM meeting that I recollect. Anything about?
I don't think they were there.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions, Gail?
Yeah, I guess, it's just the way it is on pavement always. I think the things that John talked about in terms of the clarification for the drainage, obviously, is gonna be helpful, but I guess, I wish there was a way that there only needed to be, you know, a wide enough entry that there was just one in and out, so that at least on that back side, it didn't have to be all paved around the back of the building, or at least right up into that point. And I was also, and I haven't looked at them all, but there's a lot of things that seem non-native on this planting list. There's some things that are potentially, like catmint that like spreads, doesn't it? Yeah, and things
So
that are.
the comment is a lot of non-native plants?
Yeah, and some that are actually
Mostly
aggressive type plants. And being so close to a wetland and resource area, I think they could do a better job on this. And are there, so this is in, there's no riverfront here, is that right? Just wetland? It's just wetland, there's no riverfront here?
No, I don't think it's,
Yeah.
it's just wetlands.
And so this cuts through the 100. Okay, that's all for now.
All right, Indra?
So you're doing the test pits, right?
Yeah, we would certainly be willing to do the test pits. Try to hold off till April when it's a little bit better, but otherwise it's tough, but certainly we could do that. I would agree with John. There have been several projects recently where we've been surprised to have test pits. We think are okay, and then we get there, they're different, and we require going back and modifying approvals. So this would be a little bit more direct before you get to the final point, and we have that time to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a net increase or decrease in impervious area in this project?
There is an increase of about half an acre. So proposed is about 1.6 acres of impervious area on the roof. Existing is about 1.1 acres of impervious area.
I think with the, I agree with Gail, I'd like to see more native plants in there. I do think that when this is completed, it will be a definite beautification of that particular intersection in the town, so I think
I
I'm
think
looking
it's going
forward
to
to seeing it.
potentially create traffic issues. Show that street that's one way, the part of the way,
Yeah.
when you have two driveways there. But that's not us,
I think it's a bus stop, isn't it?
bus stop.
Bus stop is right
There's
there.
also one way there.
That's correct.
All right, I'm gonna go on and we can go back to you.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Ed, anything?
Pretty much talked about already, but I was just curious, on the corner of the property, when you first drive in to go in that one-way, is that drainage going into the actual drainage around the building at that point? Or is it gonna follow that one-way driveway?
The way we have the site graded is there'll be a high point right at the intersection with Chestnut Avenue. The water will then flow down to this low point, and then from this area, the water will flow down in that location. So it'll be picked up at that.
Will that be enough to cover that entire area, that one drain?
Yes, I mean, I'll go back and check that, and if necessary, we can certainly make a double grade catch basin or inlet. But my recollection, this is probably in the order of 1.5 cubic feet per second flow, which is certainly something that a single catch basin can handle.
Jen, anything further?
This is probably way out of our jurisdiction, but if you make it a two-story building and then decrease the increase and.
That question has been asked of the proponent,
Yeah,
and the tenant he has in mind says, no, this has to be a one-story building.
that's too bad. Okay.
It would have made our project much simpler,
Small
yes.
footprint.
Yeah, just a smaller footprint. I mean, if the building is 2 stories, then you can fit those 80 parking spaces in a smaller space, and then you can plant some more happy trees, and, yeah. But, I don't know.
The question has been asked.
Okay.
If you watch the planning board meeting next week, you'll probably hear that question asked.
Have
Okay.
they thought about, so it's a new building, have they thought of anything about the roof in terms of making it like a, a green-friendly roof to reduce runoff, kind of,
I will ask the question. I don't think so,
because
but I will
it's in
ask the
a,
question.
high-impact area, that'd be kind of nice things to look at. Honestly, I feel like if rebuilding Burlington should either be considering that and/or solar. I mean, I don't know what we're doing here.
Okay. So Mike, the thing that concerned me when I looked at this plan, I was wondering, I see that wetlands 115 up through, from 100 to 115, go off to the northern side of the building. Is there anything you're doing here that affects the hydrology to that part of the wetland? In other words, does that, for example, I guess the question is, does those wetlands depend on survival based on current overland flow into that wetland? And are you changing it so much with your infiltrator that you're starving the water at that location? Maybe not a good choice of words, but you get what I'm asking. Sufficient hydrology at that location.
I'm going to say the peak flow rates depend upon the storm. So for the normal 2-year storm, we're reducing the peak flow rate to that area from about 3.5 to 1.8, 3.5 to 1.7 CFS. That's the direct flow going into that wetland area. What I don't have a handle on, I'll try to get a handle on, our infiltration system is relatively close to the wetlands. And what I don't have a handle on, is it going to be 2 hours, or 10 hours, or 5 hours infiltration?
That was my next question, is since you're going to a mostly infiltration system as opposed to, I guess, current runoff off the site or surface water flow, are the wetlands, are the soils such that the wetlands are going to receive sufficient hydrology? And I don't know if you can answer that until you do your test pits.
Right, I mean, my response would be that typically, as part of the test pit work, we do an evaluation of the hydraulic infiltration capacity of the soils. The test pits that were done out there, again, for 21E LSP, they really didn't do an evaluation other than where the groundwater table was. So the soils looked sandy when they did the test pits and they took the pictures. That may or may not be an indication of how much water can be infiltrated, so we're gonna have to take a look at that.
And my question is, will the water reach the wetlands?
I mean, I think the hydraulic flow is in that direction.
Right. Well, that's the,
LSP looked at where the water was going, and it's flowing, essentially, if you look where the pocket, it's sort of flowing almost to the northeast
okay.
across the site.
The overland flow or the groundwater?
What he saw with the sub-flow, we did, I want to say 6 borings and 6 test pits across the site.
Right.
And the 21E study looked at the adjacent parcel 336 as well. And the estimate was that the groundwater flow was essentially going northeast, so more or less up and down from the bottom to the, but again, that doesn't address the hydraulic capacity. We'll have to look at that and get that back to you.
Okay, so let's make a note on hydraulic capacity. Transmitting groundwater flow. Okay. Okay, so we'll know more. And I think my question arises because I don't know if I had a complete understanding of how those wetlands I talked about are receiving the hydrology now. So, do you folks have a pretty good understanding of how those wetlands in that off your site are actually receiving the water? You do?
This plan does not have the topography on it, it's just existing conditions. So there's a very low area here. If you walked out there, this is a two-story building on this side, basically. This is a one-story on this side, and that water runs down. There is inside the building right now two sump pumps. One is a septic sump pump, the other is a flooding sump pump, if you will, basement or the lower level, and that pumps out somewhere. There's a pipe that goes outside. We don't know what discharge is, but it would, again, the grade is going down in this direction. If you're 166, 167, the wetlands are probably elevation 160, 162. This area goes uphill. Again, this portion of the site is probably in the 170, 175, this higher area here. This is 177, and it's sort of flat through here, but then it grades down very sharply here. So, and then this area in here, it's disturbed. It's mostly gravel in this area that's overgrown. If you walked out there, you could sort of see there was a building here, I guess up to maybe 1983, that burnt down.
So I guess my question, Frank, is whether the points of discharge under the existing condition are going to be, or the points of discharge under the proposed condition are going to be similar enough to the locations in the existing condition, so there's no concern about hydrology of wetlands. That's what the question
Okay,
is.
we can take a look at that again.
Take a look at it, maybe.
Even, if necessary, we could take a look at, we've got this one catch basin that discharges directly. There's another catch basin that picks up pretty much this area, the parking lot. That, I think, is one of the items, that's another catch basin water quality unit. Again, I don't know that we can do this, but you know, if we put a water quality unit here and tied both catch basins into that, we'd have to look very carefully that we don't want to increase the peak flow rates.
And then have them discharge where?
Discharge directly to the wetlands over
Right.
this area here.
When, John, you were talking about tying some additional areas into the infiltrator, this is the thought that occurred to me. Are we actually perhaps rerouting so much water that it could affect the wetlands?
I think you should always try to recharge as much stormwater as possible and not discharge it. Even if the existing condition is feeding overland flow from the parking to the wetland, that's not the desirable situation. The desirable situation is to treat it, infiltrate it where you get more treatment as it goes through the groundwater, and then it reaches the wetland as groundwater, rather than...
That's assuming that those wetlands to the far right are going to get that water. That's my only concern.
Right. Most of the time, the surface flow and the groundwater flow, I mean, this is the top of the watershed. So there's actually a watershed divide. Just to the east of this is the Ipswich watershed, and this is in the Shawshene. It's right on the boundary. But the water is flowing off towards the northeast surface water. It's probably likely that the groundwater is doing the same. So if you put the water in the ground, it's going to feed the wetland as groundwater, and that's more desirable than discharging surface water. You're not getting as much treatment, number one, and you're increasing rates of discharge.
I accept the fact that if the water gets there, either underground or on the surface, I'm okay with it. I mean, obviously.
I guess the other concern I'd have is the way the system is set up. As you go to a higher frequency storm, that reduction in peak flow rates gets down to, again, for the 100-year storm, it's like a 2% change, reduction.
So they're getting the same amount of water.
Right. And the other piece, this area here, which is the back of the site, it's in the RO zone, nothing, so that grading is going directly into that area, overland flow into the ground as it is right now.
Well, you've heard the question. Could you, I suppose you'll be writing to us some kind of written response?
Yes.
So you can address the adequacy of the hydrology from the various points of view that have been expressed.
happy to do that.
So Larry, just another point of that. So we haven't actually gone and walked the wetlands, so I have no idea if there's actually surface water in the wetlands. But from where we did look at the wetlands from the site, and I noticed that there was a large area of phragmites, which sometimes indicates contamination or contaminated runoff. They frequently grow in areas like that. So I'm not sure that that's the case here, but we'll certainly be looking at that.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience for this? No. All right. So,
So I just want to reemphasize
Yes.
about the plants. Well, I was just doing a quick little search, and I mean, it seems like several, especially the ground covers, are invasive type plants that, would be nice to look at those.
And some of these plants are easy switches. Western red cedar, there's
Right.
an eastern red cedar,
Right, yeah.
Virginia red cedar.
Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah.
go into
There's
non-native
a lot of
reds?
things on there that are
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
all right, so what I have for a few notes here is wetland flags need to be reviewed. The test pits need to be done before closing. The south side of the building, the percent TSS removal has an issue. The non-native plants, they need to fix that. The hydraulic capacity or the ability of the wetlands to receive hydrology under different flow conditions with the revised drainage structures. And I have something about the east side. What, I forget what,
Whether that whole driveway can go into the infiltration.
Stormwater.
oh, okay, well, the driveway can go into, should go into the infiltration. I guess, okay, let's put that in, okay. All right, that's all I have. Anyone have anything else? No. Okay, next meeting is March 14th.
I think we would probably request a continuance to your next meeting. I'm not sure we have enough time,
Sure,
particularly with the weather and stuff, to be able to get the test pit done at that time.
understood. So why don't we put you in for March 28th? And then you'll let us know if it's any different. Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
All right.
good night.
Good job on your first presentation to the Burlington Conservation. Excellent.
This day,
All right, have a good evening, folks.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing. All right, so, moving on, planning board comments. Do we have anything for the planning board?
No, well, maybe just this one.
Okay. So will you be writing comments, or it's too early?
It's probably too early.
All right. Subcommittee and staff reports. Anything?
I have something.
Yes, go right
I
ahead.
have something that's kind of unofficial, but BCAT is looking to do a feature about conservation and recreation areas in town, kind of along the lines of Marty Stouffer's Wild America. It's my favorite show when I was a kid. So I may be reaching out to some of you individually about participating in that, if you're interested, as the details get worked out. So, just kind of, you know,
Okay, well, we'll see if we can support you.
if you want to be famous, you know. Yeah.
I don't know, I think I'd rather fade into oblivion.
Infamous.
Okay, infamy, okay. Upcoming meetings, March 14th and March 28th. Other business?
I was abstaining.
All right. Bill, would you like to say a few words about March 6th?
Yes, the Conservation Commission is having a special meeting on March 6th in the conference room, is that in the annex conference room?
Yeah, the basement annex conference room.
And it is to present information about the Community Preservation Act, and with the goal of bringing it to Burlington in 2020 presidential election. It would have to go through the process of getting approved by the town meeting first, probably in the May 2020 So we want to get the word out and drum up some interest and make sure everybody's well-informed. And then,
This is an informational type of thing.
Correct.
To answer people's questions about the facts about the Community Preservation Act.
Right.
And so everyone's invited. It is
It has been advertised in the paper. I saw it in the paper
a
yesterday.
special meeting of the commission. And it's a one-topic discussion. No decisions will be made.
March 6th.
And hope to see you there if you can make it. It's a Wednesday night. Okay, anything else?
We get 2 notifications from utility companies. National Grid wrote to the commission notifying them of a gas line replacement project on University Ave. It's an exempt activity because it's not an expansion, they're just doing maintenance to replace a line. That is going to be happening soon, so it's just a notification. Additionally, Tennessee Gas gave the commission notification that they'll be doing vegetation management along their rights-of-way in Burlington, starting.
What does that mean, vegetation management?
Chopping.
Yes.
When are they doing it?
Beginning in March to April. So the utility companies are pretty aware of like nesting seasons of birds and whatnot, so they time their stuff to,
Sometimes they aren't. In the past, they seem to be doing it like late. Like,
yeah. So this is March and April.
Do we have anything to sign at this point? Any documents we haven't signed?
Larry hasn't signed
I think they all went around.
Larry hasn't signed those.
Oh. Well, that, you mean you didn't sign?
I didn't sign. Okay, sorry for that, guys. Okay. All right, is there anything else?
Well, we have some interest expressed in the vacant commissioner slot, so that's good. So far,
Absolutely.
3 people have expressed interest.
Right.
We sell a spot?
This is to replace the seat vacated by Kerry Meltzer.
Right. So at the last meeting, we had one potential commissioner come in and meet the commission. I'm trying to coordinate meeting with another person who's interested and tell him about it so he gets some information before he comes and meets with the commission. And hopefully that'll take place at the second meeting in March.
Okay, so there was 2 things for signature tonight?
3, I think?
No, it was just
Was it
2, because we,
2?
yeah, we continued the
Cedarwood?
amendment
Those were continued.
and the
36.
NOI for
Okay, yeah, Cedarwood and Sunset, yep.
All right. Okay, is there anything further? No. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Good evening.